decided to come to UVA because of the opportunity to join the CMB. Because if I was an incoming engineer, so I also got into Virginia Tech, and everything said go to Tech for engineering, go to Tech for engineering, go to Tech to see a football team win. But the idea of a new startup marching band seemed very interesting. So and my brother was here at UVA too, and he was thinking about doing the marching band. Ultimately, he did not. But the idea of coming to UVA, doing the marching band potentially with my brother was a big reason that I decided on UVA over the other schools. Coming into to college, I hadn't really like followed, college bands at all. So I had no conception of how they even operated. Because now I know like they're these big like entertainment machines basically at a football game. But coming out of high school, I still thought your competition sort of performance. But I came from a high school that had a marching band that was like in decline, so I could have never envisioned something starting at 140 members. And not 140 members to me our first year still sounded better than like any 200-piece like high school band I'd ever heard. And then now seeing it to be like a 300+ group that's just entertaining the crowd. We had this like that evolution of dance thing that people keep looking at and things like that. I don't think I would have had any expectation for it to be as big of a program as it's become. I didn't think it would be anywhere horrible. I don't think it would have been enough to like knock on them like the Duke band or anything. But I don't know. Like I feel like maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I feel like out of the ACC bands that I've ever seen perform, and now I've seen a lot of them perform from traveling. Granted, it's been over 10 years, and I've seen the UVA band perform outside of not being a member, so I've actually seen us perform. I don't think I've ever heard a sound out of an ACC band that's quite like our band. So I had no expectations that it was going to be this big of a thing. I don't remember how I heard about it. I would assume it was something to do with my high school band director, or maybe it was probably actually through my mom, because Bill was actively trying to recruit my brother. And I was coming out of high school at the same time, and so it was probably like through that then I was like, well, I could maybe do marching band too. So I think that's where I probably like first heard about the marching band and realized, they're going away from this, pep band, scramble band thing to a real college marching band. I don't remember if it was Bill Peace or Doug Phillips who I met first, but it was the summer orientation that all first year students do. I just randomly I was with my mother, and I was talking with one of them in old Cavalier Hall, just like in that main entrance, about the marching band at some point. That was probably my first time even interacting with one of the directors. And that first day walking into the hotel, that's memorable. I was scared with all the clapping. I had no idea what was going on. So our first year, it took a lot of time, because what we were practicing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then Friday of home games, I think it was. I don't remember if the Friday was every week or only the home games, but we were practicing quite a lot. So coming into UVA, and also having a brother who was here, and like knowing the horror stories of some of like the intro classes that were the really hard ones, like the readout classes, like chemistry. What I did was I took chemistry at the community college in Northern Virginia the summer before coming to UVA, just to lighten my load for that first semester. So for me, the marching band that first year, it was a lot of time, but I don't think it like impacted and changed like my academics at all, just because I had already removed a 4-credit class by taking it early. My brother originally started as an engineer and later switched to architecture, but he was talking about like everybody like cries over the intro chem classes. Like, well, I'm not going to do that. I know I'm not going to really need this, so let's just get the credit out of the way, and then swap that basically either 3 or 4 credit like class and lab. For at the time, marching band was a 3-credit class, so I didn't have to add any more class, so I just took one less core class and had marching band in its place. Well, for grad school here, you don't really have set hours. your advisor would want you to be in for the core part of what would be a normal business day. So, normal business day, 9 to 5, 8 to 5. If you're there for some 4-hour subset at some point, and then you can work later at night or earlier in the morning or 2 a.m., whatever, they really don't care. So what I started doing was just kind of working a more rigid work schedule. So get here at 9 or 10, and then just leave right before band, go to band. And so I treated this as a job, and then just marching band as something else. So it never really got in the way. And there were times where, obviously, when I had big projects and deadlines coming up, that marching band seemed like it was interfering or getting in the way just because of the time. But I think a lot of it too, if you have that activity or something else you have to go home to, you actually become more productive during the day. So when I had to set myself a 9 to 5 schedule, knowing that I'd be going to band or something else, I actually became more productive during the day because I knew I had these hard deadlines and other things that I wanted to do. So it probably actually helped with my grad school efficiency compared to if I didn't have marching band. Because I'd be like, well, I can work as slow as I want because I can just stay here until 7 or 8 o'clock or go home and continue working. But if you have a band or something, it's like, no, I need to make sure I get this done before I leave today, and you get it done. I guess we always have like our little ups and downs, like interactions with people where you get frustrated with somebody. But I can't think of any like really trying point. I was like, this was a dark point in my time or anything. Everything has been generally pretty good. Probably the worst thing, and it was just a very unfortunate thing because of rain and weather, I think it was our final show our first year. Maybe not the final, it was our Armed Forces show, a military appreciation show. And I think we set some drill on Thursday night, and it wasn't the finished drill, we were going to finish it up on Friday, before the game, before the next day. And so the last drill we set, our entire band, which was 140 wind players or something like that, large, was spread out from like 20 to 20 or 15 to 15 across the field for playing the Armed Forces melody, which are kind of like very intricate since they're changing keys and they're just quick little medleys really quickly and kind of like can get confused. And I remember personally, I also had a jazz concert coming up that weekend, so I had a split time where for like that Thursday practice and the Tuesday practice, jazz and marching band overlap. So I had to miss half of like marching band to do be there for the jazz rehearsal since our concert was coming up. So personally, I didn't even have all my music memorized by that time. Friday comes along, I think it rains a lot, so we never get to finish our setting of the drill. So we stayed at this like really far spread out. And then the performance-wise, I felt like it was falling apart just because of nobody. I personally didn't know my music, and I feel like a lot of people didn't know the music, and I was just kind of sitting there like pretending to play, just waiting for like, let's have this thing finish. Let's have this thing finish. That was probably the most down, like bad time, but it really wasn't. It was just an unfortunate like circumstance. The problem was when we were spread out that much too. The final drill, if I remember, it would have like brought everybody really close together, which there's kind of that confidence when you can hear people playing and you're going to start playing even if you're making more mistakes. But when you're spread out really far and you just don't hear anything, then you start to think you're wrong and you start to not play. So even if you kind of have your music memorized, your confidence just goes down because you don't hear anything. You're like, something's really wrong, something's really wrong. I've always wondered what that one actually sounded like from the fans' point of view, or from like the director's point of view, because I'm sure it didn't sound great. Why I continued right after undergrad for 2 years, then I stopped. Then it's why did I even come back? So right after undergrad, I just wasn't done playing. It was fun. I still knew, as a graduating fourth year, I still knew all like the second, third, and the rising second, third, and fourth years in the band. So there was still a good bond with a bunch of friends and people in the baritone section, like Danny Nowicki, Goofy, Aaron Jones, and a few others. That I was like, well, I could come back and work with them, and just have fun. So after my undergrad, it was never even like a consideration to not do it. It was like, well, I'm here. I'm still a student. You know, there were other rising fourth years at the time, or rising fifth years, I guess, at the time, who I knew were coming back. Like Matt Haskey was coming back. Dan Martin in the trumpet section was coming back. There were a few others, and I was like, well, if I'm not the only person coming back, I think there were that first fifth year. I think there was 5 or 6 people who probably continued on after graduating. And then after my 6th year, the football team was really going downhill fast. I think that was, I don't remember if my 6th year was the last year of, I think it was the last year of growth, so it was what, a 4 and 8 year or something like that. I thought I was done. I was like, well, you know, I've done this for 6 years. I kind of want to do the whole tailgating thing. I want to get really drunk and go into a football game. I want to be able to leave a football game when we're down 30 at the half, right? So I had that opportunity, and I did that. And what I realized was, you know, it's all right going out and tailgating and drinking a little bit before the game, but it's really not that exciting. I mean, it's a little bit exciting, but it's not as great as people make it seem. And then you're in the game, and you're drunk, and you sober up, and then halftime comes up, and like I see the band. I think their first show that year I didn't do it. I was so upset because it was the show I always wanted to do because I had a Beatles medley, and that's what I had been pitching for 6 years since I was a first year that we needed to do a Beatles show. So I saw them play the Beatles show, and then it was also Uprising from Muse and Bohemian Rhapsody from Queen. And that first show was like really low brass, you know, trombone, baritone, like centric. I was like, why am I not there? So I was regretting not doing band that year by the first show. So then it kind of came around to like the next year was coming up. I was like, yeah, I could easily do this. And I did get to rush the field. I think it was Miami that year. It was Coach London's first ACC win, and people rushed the field, and I was on the field and got to see the band and the singers. I was like, that's kind of fun. So I've done that. I've rushed the field. I've seen the band. I've heard the band, so I can be in the band. I tailgated. I accomplished all the things that I needed to do for that 1 year off. And then now I took a year off. I'm not going to come back and be a leadership, like a section leader or drill instructor, because I wouldn't do that to the younger people who had put in their 1 or 2 years. So I was like, well, it might be fun just to come back and be a regular band member again. It was kind of honestly refreshing because you didn't have to worry about any of the stresses of like, is everybody going to remember all the visuals or the drill counts, or does everybody know their music? To be able to come back and just be able to, I knew I was fine, because it's coming back for what would be my 7th year. There weren't many times where I was like, I don't know if I know all my music or my drill right now, because I had done it for 6 years. Everything became second nature. So it was actually probably that 7th, 8th, and this current year have been more relaxed than any of the other prior years, just because I've done it for so long. Everything is so second nature. I can just kind of like enjoy the process of it happening, as opposed to being stressed about all the little details. The biggest appreciation I think I learned from not being in the band and being in the stands for that 1 year was the sound that the band put out. Like, you always hear like, oh, they're really loud, or we're really loud, or you're overplaying Kyle, or so and so is overplaying Philip Morris, or whatever. You hear it doesn't sound as loud when you're sitting there in the band, especially trombone baritones. We're in the far back, so we don't hear the sheer volume. But hearing the band from the stands, like the top point, and hearing them play at you, I was like, we are loud. So I gained an appreciation for the sound that the band was actually able to be putting out. And Drew Cook's going to like this. I actually gained an appreciation for like uniformity of the visuals in the stands. Because the visuals in the stands that were tight and everybody was doing the same thing looked really good from across the field. Stuff that was kind of chaotic and everybody was doing their own things, which as a baritone DI I was guilty of doing. It's like, no, we're doing this visual. I don't care about what anybody else is saying. Did not look as good from across the field. So I gained those sort of like, I gained a little bit more like appreciation for what the directors actually see and have to deal with, whereas like as a member you might not you might not realize. I think if they come back for one game and they're, especially if they sit across from the band, they're gonna realize, oh, like maybe they're the type of person who just did whatever the director said without knowing. At least they'll see it like that's why Cook was so hard on that, or that's why Peace was pushing this so hard. But if the people who were like me at some point who were like, no, we're doing this visual because I think it's fun and it's not uniform, you're gonna be like, oh, like the baritones are just doing their own thing over there. Everybody else in the band is doing something else, and it just doesn't look that great. Well, I mean, after being here for so long, and the fact that in a few months I will be Dr. Kyle Craig, I suppose, I feel like we're on a first name basis. And it actually did come from grad school because all the professors in this hall, that whenever you talk with them, you call them by their first name. So, and I was talking with Bill once. I was like, "Can I just call you Bill?" He was like, "Yeah, call me whatever you want." So, but and it's a. So I guess with Bill Peace, it's more of. I don't want to say it's like a fatherly relationship, but he's always the guy that comes and like will give you life advice when you're talking with him, and he still does that, like talking with him about my job and like giving me advice of like what I should do to like how I should save my money aside or how I should like think about investing money here or there and trying to give words of wisdom. So he's kind of the more of the fatherly figure.